This is my review of chapter 24 of the Bleach manga. In the little corner we see some blood hit the ground, and then we see like water ripples, like a water ripple effect, and like there's a like concave view, I think is the right term to use, of everything, where like everything's wrapping around like this in your vision. And we see Orihime, like we see the ground and the sky with his ripple view, and then we see Orihime. Her and Tatsuki see that it's raining outside, and Tatsuki offers to let her sleep there. Orihime reveals that she was evicted, and that she has a sleeping bag, and it's reversible, and Tatsuki's kind of like, even if it's reversible and sleeping bag, you can't just stay outside and stuff. She's freaking out because she thinks that Orihime is homeless and she's just been sleeping in a sleeping bag this whole time. But then Orihime reveals it was a joke. It was actually pretty funny. These panels were really funny. She waited a whole week for an opportunity to make this joke on Tatsuki, and that she's actually been living in a hotel the whole time. She has a lot of like chibi drawings of herself and stuff with a lot of a very different attitude than she normally has. She's not like being airheaded. She's actually being normal here, it seems. I think this is great characterization. I don't know why we don't get more of this from Orihime, because I think this is much more interesting than the normal shit we see from her. Where like the airheaded stuff with Airbag was her just pretending to be airheaded, and then she's actually pretty cunning with the joke. But then there's also the over-the-top nature of her waiting a week for it. Just like when she would have a giant fucking oversized meal, or an incredibly simple meal, or she'd draw herself as a robot. It like got the best balances of all of her without making her just a fucking moron, right? Or a weirdo. It was awkward in a funny way. Tatsuki assures Orihime that she can stay there, but Orihime says she wants to walk home, and she wants to walk home because she wants to think to herself. And she starts thinking about the comparison of losing somebody between her and Ichigo. She knows how Ichigo feels losing her mother because she lost her brother when they're around the same age. And she feels like she better understands Ichigo now. And I think Kubo's really good at writing this. I don't know why people say he isn't. This is really well written. This is a deep, complex, emotional thing. Usually people like this kind of thing. Not me. I just like fights. But most people would be saying that they want something like this, and I think Kubo delivers this fine. I think it's a nice chapter cover. You have Orihime out front, and she's got like something just like normal summer clothes on, and then Ichigo's behind her wearing like a parka and drinking something. And then we come back to the fight, and we see blood is flying everywhere, and we see the Grand Fisher is freaking out because Ichigo almost cut his arm completely off. It's hanging by like a bit of hair. And we see that Ichigo is bleeding a lot too. There's blood like splattered all over trees and shit. There's just blood fucking everywhere. Ichigo's sheath is like held on by a strap, and the strap is like tore from a stab earlier, and it finally snaps. And his sheath falls off and hits the ground. We see Grand Fisher is now falling on the ground, and he can't even get himself up. He needs life alert. And he's still just bleeding fucking out. There's just blood all over the ground under him. They're both like barely keeping themselves going. Ichigo's balancing himself on the sword, just barely able to stay up. And then Rukia calls out to him, and Ichigo asks her what took her so long. And she says, well, you told me not to interfere. And then he says, oh, I wasn't being serious. So he did want help. He wasn't being completely unreasonable. He was just kind of pissed off. And while they're talking, Grand Fisher attacks him in what appears to be a hair thing that hits him in the face. But when we cut back to Grand Fisher, we see like things coming out of his head, and it's just weird. I don't know if it was a head thing or what the fuck happened. But then Grand Fisher sucks himself into his lore, and he reveals that Ichigo earlier asked if it was an appendage, and he reveals that it's actually a second body, and if one body's hurt, he can just go into the other body. He's using this one since his primary body is hurt. And then we come back to the shrine, and Kona's outside, and he kind of raises up because he sensed something, and then we see Ishin's coming out, of the shrine, and he notices Ichigo's there, and he opens the door to let him in, and then Kone's gone before he can say anything to let him in. And then we see Ichigo is even more angry now because Grand Fisher is puppeting this form of his mom, and he tries to push to fight Grand Fisher, but Rukia's holding on to him, trying to stop him because he's injured. And then Grand Fisher jumps up in the air and starts flying away, basically saying, "You're in no condition to fight, and even if you are, you can't catch me." Or something like that. Ichigo's clearly determined to avenge his mother, but as he's struggling against Rukia, he finally just loses consciousness and falls down. I assume Grand Fisher got away, and Kone shows up, and Rukia's like sad for a moment, but then she says if he's still alive, so he must have a lot of spiritual energy. And she thanks him for not actually dying. That's where it leaves off. I think that's a pretty decent ending to this fight. You know, Ichigo was being pretty reckless. He would have won if he accepted Rukia's help. Kido could have done a lot. At the same time, Grand Fisher might have taken her hostage, but hard to say. It's a fine ending. Again, I really like, with this fight, what it did right was having Ichigo not be good at fighting yet. Granted, we're told Grand Fisher is really powerful, and we see that. He's also very intelligent. So I think his age is respected very well with this fight, which is not something I can say for later stuff in the series. But yeah. I think it was good. Good chapter. Good ending. All around, mostly positive. That's it for chapter 24. I'm just going to keep moving on.